This is CBC Nova Scotia News.
Off the job, Canada Post workers hit the picket line after the government calls for major reforms. The case of Jack and Lily. True crime podcasts focus on the mystery surrounding the missing Pictou County children. And end of an era. The longtime voice of the Cape Breton Eagles hangs up the mic.
The weekend is here and we'll have lots of sunshine on tap. Northwest winds on Saturday will ease for Sunday. Your full forecast is coming up.
Good evening. Canada Post deliveries are at a stop across the country as tens of thousands of workers have walked off the job. The union announced the strike after Ottawa told the Crown Corporation to make major reforms. As Meg Campbell reports, the strike is having an impact on Nova Scotians and local businesses.
Despite a postal strike that has been signed, sealed, and delivered across Canada, Windsor residents are still hoping to get their mail here at the local post office.
Unfortunately, these things happen, but we're in a bit of a dilemma. My son got a notice from Canada Post that his parcel was here yesterday for his wedding tomorrow, and I don't think he's going to have that for his wedding tomorrow by the looks of things.
Allison Stevens is a small business owner who makes jewelry from her home in Hants County. She says this strike comes at a time when her business is still reeling from the last Canada Post strike.
And now the panic sets in immediately for small business owners especially. We don't have like the big accounts at couriers that we get a huge discount from. We have to pivot and figure out what we're going to do.
Thousands of Canada Post workers are on strike across the country, including in Halifax. It's in response to sweeping changes ordered by the federal government, including a phased end to home delivery and closing some rural outlets. And workers in this province don't give their stamp of approval.
As you see behind me, we may be on strike, but there are folks going in and out of the post office. So when you hear folks saying, well, the post office is dead, we don't need the post office. If we don't need the post office, why are folks going in and out on a day where we are on strike?
Rural Nova Scotians agree.
It's just a sad thing that we're losing. I mean, we've had it for so long. Why not keep it around?
But another year on the picket line has left Canada Post employees like Sokol feeling discouraged.
You would think that when we hear the messages from the Prime Minister and from our leaders and our MPs about building our nation, that starts on the ground with postal workers, and we connect every single Canadian across this country, and it's really disheartening to hear that the first cut we have is to our public post office.
Meg Campbell, CBC News, Windsor.
People across the province and the country have been concerned about the disappearance of Lily and Jack Sullivan. But for true crime spectators on social media, the case has become all-consuming. While the discussions can help police move investigations forward, there are also ethical issues to consider amid the family tragedy. Allie Thompson has more.
The case of missing Nova Scotia children, Jack and Lily Sullivan, has become all-consuming for true crime enthusiasts on social media. Experts say there are benefits and pitfalls. While the discussions can and have led to real-world leads for police, there are also ethical concerns in turning people who are already suffering into content.
Okay, hey guys, welcome to the live. I know it's been a minute or so. Ken's joining me today.
Sunny Austin does this multiple times a week, sits for hours in her BC home discussing every aspect of the disappearance of Jack and Lily Sullivan. In the chat, members of their family.
YouTubers, true crime community, different. We can sit there and keep these cases alive and keep pushing them out there and have family members come join, talk if they want to.
Not everything that's discussed on Austin's show is based in truth, and she realizes that. For her, it's about raising the case's profile.
It was really about being a voice for the victims, and that's really the core of everything.
Belinda Gray is Jack and Lily's paternal grandmother. She started watching Austin's show amid a lack of answers. In fact, Gray regularly tunes into more than 10 YouTube shows that are covering the case. She, too, realizes that online conversations can run amok, but she doesn't care.
To me, the more people that talk about Jack and Lily, the better it is. I don't care who they are. They can state whatever they want that isn't true. I don't care, because people are listening and Jack and Lily's name is still out there.
Sergeant Chris Marshall says some of the 800 tips the RCMP have followed up on were a direct result of the true crime shows that are covering the case. He says in general, these sorts of tips can and have helped move investigations forward.
My experience is that there is a big benefit, but it's like anything, there's risk and reward to anything that we do.
The risk? The tips police know from the outset are false. They are nevertheless required to do their due diligence and fully investigate.
We now have to put investigators on that information, which is taking people away from potentially chasing down actual real leads that are actually based in fact. So that's the complication that can come.
But according to experts, this kind of exposure is a double-edged sword.
I think it's important to remember that every single story that unfolds online, it's real people.
Whitney Phillips says there are major ethical concerns with discussing such cases on platforms like YouTube. Phillips says click-based web engagement is designed to turn world events into commodified content. The attention economy has long driven pop culture and news, in that the most intriguing, shocking, and upsetting information is what people respond to and engage with. But she says that can reduce victims of crime and their families into a consumable product. But Phillips says the attention economy is inescapable. And so it's up to all of us to ponder the ethics of these conversations.
I believe that content producers, including everyday citizens sharing information, have a responsibility of understanding what their digital technologies might not be wanting them to see in terms of the human impact, the human consequences.
Anyways, if you guys haven't hit that like and share for Jack and Lily, again, they've been missing since May 2nd of 2025.
Austin says she does make money off her channel through YouTube and donations, but that's not why she's doing it.
So the impact that I know that our channel can have is that we just keep fighting for people to share to the algorithm, to keep the story out there, do it for Jack and Lily because they're missing children.
Allie Thompson, CBC News, Halifax.
Ryan's here with the first look at the weather, and boy, it was nice to hear that rain overnight.
Yes, absolutely. Everybody maybe running out into the rain this morning, just loving it. I'm sure this is so needed. Now, of course, the spot that needed it the most didn't really see as much as we would like. And, as you see all these numbers, and there are a lot of numbers, but directing your attention to Greenwood and Kentville area, 5 to 10 millimeters here. So not enough, and up into Cumberland County as well. Not quite what we were hoping for there. You can see kind of a widespread 10 to 20 millimeters for most of the rest of the province, closer to 10, obviously out toward the east. And southern New Brunswick really needed it as well. They got some heavier amounts there, so that's some good news. So the front moves through tonight and moves out tonight. Saturday, we're back into the sunshine. The northwest wind is just going to be a little on the persistent side for Saturday, especially in the east with some gusts 30 to 40 there. And then for Saturday night, we cloud up a little bit. Sunday is kind of a clear out day, and then another weak front coming through Sunday night. But overall, pretty good weekend. We'll walk you through that and your 7-day coming up in a few minutes. Amy.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you.
The Nova Scotia government has tabled a long-awaited update to the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. While the update includes more oversight for municipalities and privacy breaches and makes the Privacy Commissioner an officer of the legislature, the changes do not include a long-standing promise by Tim Houston. Michael Gorman explains.
Changes tabled Friday by the Justice Minister represent the first major overhaul of the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act in 25 years. They're as notable for what's not included as for what is. The government is giving the Privacy Commissioner more oversight on municipalities and changing the 30-day time limit from responses from calendar days to business days. But a long-standing promise by Tim Houston to give the Commissioner order-making power is not included in the bill, although the role will now report to the legislature and not a cabinet minister. In opposition, Houston sued a former Liberal government when it refused to follow a commissioner's recommendation to release information. He promised to be the one to finally grant order-making power during the 2021 election. But that promise has not been kept, in part because Houston says he sees things more clearly now that he's in government.
We're trying to find the balance. I think we found the balance, and we'll continue to look at what's may be necessary in the future. But I think making an officer of the legislature is an important first step. That shouldn't be diminished or just glossed over. I think it's important.
The leader of the official opposition isn't so sure Houston has struck a balance.
I think that what we've seen in this act is more efforts to fiddle around the edges rather than actually make government transparent and accountable to people, which was one of Tim Houston's signature promises when he ran for premier.
The province's privacy commissioner says many of the changes are positive. He says the absence of order-making power is a missed opportunity, but not a surprise. Another concern is what he calls a watering down of the Act's purpose section.
Access to accurate information and timely access to source documents and government information is I think, a treatment for misinformation and disinformation. And so I don't like to see the government taking a step backwards.
Nurse says the change is unnecessary, and he's calling on the government to restore it. Michael Gorman, CBC News at Province House.
The Nova Scotia government is also amending legislation to allow offshore wind to be bought and used locally. Offshore wind projects are still years away from being realized, and the province expects most of what's eventually generated will be exported. But Energy Minister Trevor Boudreau says he wants to make sure it can be used here in the province.
As this scales up, as offshore wind scales up, and as it develops here, our anticipation is you will see those costs come down, and we will always look out for the best interest of ratepayers, and we hope that cost comes down to be at a place where we can utilize it.
The legislation also puts some caps on onshore wind. Officials say it protects against paying for more energy than the grid needs. The province is lengthening the hunting season and reducing the minimum age to hunt deer and bear. New wildlife regulations will add 11 more Sundays to the season. It will also lower the minimum age to hunt deer and bear from 16 to 12. An extra week will also be added to the deer hunting season. The changes take effect on October 1st. Well, it is the end of an era at Sydney's Centre 200 tonight as longtime public address announcer Dave LeBlanc hangs up the microphone after nearly 40 years. Kyle Moore has that story.
Over the years, hockey players have come and gone, but one thing has remained the same at Centre 200, the voice heard inside the building.
And now the person whose impact on the Screaming Eagles was and is immeasurable.
Tonight, after almost 40 years, Dave LeBlanc is calling it a career.
It's a little bit of the bittersweet because it's going to be my last game, and it's something I've enjoyed doing since 1980, in terms of Centre 200, since 1987. And before that, it was in the late 70s.
LeBlanc has been part of sports broadcasting on the island since the 1970s. The job behind the microphone at Centre 200 began when the Cape Breton Oilers came to town in 1988.
I really enjoyed it that first night with the tuxedo on, and it was pro hockey, and I like sports and always did, and it was something that appealed to me. And one game led to 2 games, and to 3 games, and now we're almost thousands of games.
Nobody suspected Dave would stick around another 16 years, so I've been doing music and the Jumbotron, waiting for this moment, and finally I'm going to get my chance to take over for Dave.
Rob McNamara will take over for LeBlanc, but he admits he has big shoes to fill.
I mean, here's a guy that is Mr. Sports in Cape Breton. He is the voice that you heard on the radio for so long. He's the voice that's been a part of this arena essentially since the doors have opened. So yeah, it's a little intimidating. I'm both excited and a little nervous at the same time.
After Dave LeBlanc calls his final game here tonight, he will be honored during a pregame ceremony before tomorrow night's game. It's his chance to say thank you to the fans and to be honored for his long career behind the microphone.
Maybe I'll get a chance to say goodbye to everybody in the building and all the people who have been very kind to me over the years, and they really have been.
LeBlanc was recently inducted into the Cape Breton Sports Hall of Fame. He says at the age of 75, it's time to enjoy the next chapter of his life. Kyle Moore, CBC News, Sydney.
A nice look at
This weather update is brought to you by Access Wellness Nova Scotia. Book your appointment today for free, confidential mental wellness support.
And Ryan's here with this full forecast. So we got that rain that we needed, maybe more in some areas, less in the others, but then it's clearing for the weekend.
Yeah, perfect timing, as we couldn't have drawn it up any better, as we're looking at the skies continuing to clear through this Friday evening. Quiet night on tap, and Saturday looks great. Good. I think it's going to be the brighter of the 2 days. Sunday a little bit warmer, but clouds a little more in the mix. We'll break all this down. First, let's have a look at our webcam shot.
Lovely.
Yeah, Digby. And a beautiful evening in Digby. The sky's clearing out there throughout the day, and it's going to be a pretty quiet night tonight in Digby and across Nova Scotia. As we look at those temperatures out there right now, it's around 20 degrees in Digby and 20 degrees at Keji and 23 in Halifax at last check. So still quite a summer-like evening out there. The winds, they were pretty breezy and gusty through the evening and into the overnight last night and this morning, especially in the east across Cape Breton. Those winds have been shifting to the west, sustained near 20, couple of gusts still near 30, but overall the winds have continued to back off. There's the clouds that have been slowly but surely clearing their way out for this afternoon. Another little band of cloud here over the last couple of hours has thickened up again, but not for long. It will continue to clear as that front moves off to the east over the next couple of hours. For tonight, we're looking at temperatures dropping into the 12 to 14 range for most. Couple of 15s on the board. Kentville down through Bridgewater. Those westerly winds becoming light. Still a slight chance for a shower. This little wave right there is going to go across Cape Breton Island, and so there is a chance for a shower overnight tonight for you folks there. By the time we get to Saturday morning, we're looking at that quiet start, some clouds in the mix early on, and then a mostly sunny day. Now, the winds from the northwest will be a little on the breezy side, especially for Cape Breton and back through the North Shore region. This is where we'll see sustained winds near 20, some gusts to 30 or 40 kilometers per hour. It's a lighter wind back towards western areas of the province. Note through Saturday evening, if you've got some plans, bit of high cloud starting to work its way in for Saturday evening, but continuing quiet. We'll see temperatures with that northwest wind near 15 to 16 degrees for Inverness County, squeaking up into the 17-18 range for St. Peter, Sydney, back towards Victoria County, places like Guinness, and back into the mainland, Antigonish, Port Hawkesbury, back into Canso, Sherbrooke. We'll be seeing temperatures into the high teens for tomorrow. Better chance for 20s as we move into central, kind of away from that northwest onshore flow, and temperatures here will be near 20 degrees for tomorrow, looking pretty good. Back into the west, and temperatures in these onshore winds, Annapolis Royal down through Yarmouth, feeling that onshore wind with 17 to 18 degree temperatures here. Likely to see, I think, some 22, 23, maybe even 24 degree temperatures in through Queens County tomorrow. That northwest flow is really favorable for you folks there. Now, as we walk you through into Sunday morning, note this cloud cover that's kind of building in Saturday night into Sunday morning. It clears away. We're sunny into the afternoon. That front, not quite here, but bringing some showers to New Brunswick for Sunday afternoon, but staying dry for Nova Scotia. Looking nice temperatures into the low 20s. We'll look at a brief chance for a shower Sunday night as that front comes through. Other than that, dry again, and you can see Tuesday, nice 18 degrees, and then for Wednesday, Thursday, we're looking at a push of fall air. Wednesday is October 1st, so perhaps fittingly so, a little reminder of where we are on the calendar. Late next week, some uncertainty continues, however. Humberto is going to continue to move up, likely as a Category 4 storm, and then we'll thread the needle between Bermuda and the United States, but it does look like it's going to get caught up in those upper level winds as a trough comes through and grabs it and moves it out to the east. And so some good news there. That is looking less and less likely to be a threat. This system is one we're going to have to be keeping an eye on. It is already potential tropical cyclone 9. We'll likely get a name over the weekend, and a 90% chance of it actually becoming a tropical storm. This one is looking likely to kind of move up towards the southeast U.S. in this area here early next week. And then the forecast models aren't really quite sure what to do with it. Maybe moving it inland and then back out towards the sea. So that one, lots of uncertainty with that, Amy. That'll be one we do have to keep an eye on through the weekend and into early next week. We'll keep you posted.
Absolutely. All right. Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you.
Well, it is a special time for the St. FX women's rugby team as two former players prepare to play for the biggest prize in the sport on Saturday. Halifax firefighter Olivia DeMerchant and Tyson Bookaboom are part of Team Canada's roster for the World Cup final against England. And as Gareth Hampshire tells us, Canada's success is a big point of pride for the school's current members.
Family on me! Family on three! 1, 2, 3! Family!
These are the players being inspired by Canada's memorable run to the Rugby World Cup final. Two members of the Canadian roster were part of winning teams here at St. FX and are now with the national team that's being talked about across the country.
Watching this team that I know has put so much effort in finally get that recognition on the national level, it's really incredible.
Olivia DeMerchant was part of 3 national championship winning teams at St. FX, and along with another former player, Tyson Bookaboom, is one of the senior players in Canada's team. DeMerchant has passed on valuable experience to some of the team's current players.
Last year, we were super honored to have her come back, and she came and helped the forwards out with some scrumming. And she just has such a wealth of knowledge that she's able to give to people whenever she steps on the field with them.
Team Canada's success is happening at a time of strong growth for the women's game in Nova Scotia.
There's been a huge increase in young girls playing rugby in Canada as of recently, and just having these exceptional role models to be able to look up to following the Olympics and now following the World Cup. I just think it's going to keep growing the game even more.
In the past 7 years, the number of female club rugby players has nearly doubled to more than 800 in the province, with the biggest increases at the junior levels.
Almost all the rugby clubs around here have now mini rugby for like little kids, which we never had 10 years ago. You couldn't find mini rugby, so now they're starting when they're 7 and 8. And when I get them now at university, the skill level is so high, the dedication, the fitness, it makes my job a lot easier.
He notes Canada's World Cup efforts are even more impressive, considering the team has been fundraising to support the campaign.
Really nice to see them beating these high-quality countries that have a lot of funding behind them. So I think it shows a lot of the character of this team.
They're all hoping Canada can make history in the final against host Team England. Gareth Hampshire, CBC News, Antigonish.
Coming up, a new report says our planet's health is in danger as the acidity of the world's oceans crosses a critical threshold for marine life. A new report finds for the first time the world's oceans have failed a key planetary health check. The Potsdam Institute for Climate Impact Research says ocean acidity crossed a critical threshold for marine life. And for more on this, we're joined by marine ecologist Boris Worm. So first of all, I guess we should get into the subject of planetary boundaries. What's the concept behind that?
Concept is pretty simple. It's a health check for the planet. We live in a very inhospitable universe, in this tiny bubble of livable space. And that livable space depends on certain boundary conditions, like a stable climate, ecosystems that produce food, clean air we can breathe, and so on. And this health check is it's almost like a blood test, for the planet, saying there are all these important systems that need to work for us to function and to survive. And what are the conditions now as opposed to what they should be? And then there's an unsafe zone and a danger zone, and they're tracking how close we are to crossing those critical boundaries.
Well, it says the oceans increase their acidity by 30 to 40%. Can you talk about what that means and what kind of impact it will have?
So this result was particularly interesting to me because it's the only boundary that's specific just to the ocean. And what it means is that the ocean has been absorbing about 150 billion tons of the carbon dioxide we've been emitting over the last 200 years. So that's about 35%, sucking it up like a sponge. Good for us because it's out of the atmosphere, it's not warming the planet. Not so good for the ocean because it forms carbonic acid, and that corrodes the shells that organisms build. Organisms like oysters, lobsters, corals, plankton organisms, and so on. It's like an osteoporosis for the ocean, and that's sort of creeping up as we're emitting more and more CO2, and the ocean, thankfully, sucks that CO2 up, but to its own detriment.
So we've seen this ramping up. Is there any particular tipping point where it's gotten so bad?
Yeah, so they determined that if the CO2 affects the dissolution of calcium carbonate, which the organisms use to build their shells, and if that's at a critical level of like 80% below where it should be, then we're really seeing some of those symptoms, some of that osteoporosis-like symptoms in organisms. And that's where we're at now. So we've just crossed that boundary. Acidity has crept up to a point where it, in fact, becomes difficult for some of these organisms to build their shells and to go on with their lives. And that affects the whole food chain in the ocean. It also affects the ocean's ability to take up more CO2. We're tipping it out of that balance, and that so sponge-like quality diminishes, which is a feedback we have in our own climate system that's not good for us.
In terms of turning this around, do you see any solutions, any possibilities there?
The beautiful thing about this planetary health framework is that every single of these symptoms has a solution. Much like, when my cholesterol is too high or my blood pressure is too high, I know what to do. There's solutions for this. There's short-term solutions, say medications. We have the same thing in the ocean. We can develop antacids for the ocean to bring down its acidity. Some of that technology is developed right here in Halifax by Planetary Technologies. I will say it's a short-term solution, much like medication is, and it's hard to scale to the global level. The global long-term solution is to bring down CO2 emissions, which we have to do anyways, because we're running out of fossil fuels and we're heating up the planet beyond livable boundaries in that respect. We have crossed that boundary a while ago. So it also helps the ocean along the way, which makes me happy.
So it's a real lifestyle change as opposed to the medication, right?
And as we know from our own health, oftentimes we have to do both. Well, we have to do a bit of medication, but it's only in transition for us to change our lifestyle. And, this planetary health report, which comes out every year, is a little bit like you going to your doctor and you're saying, you haven't really listened to me last year. This year it's worse. So here's what you need to do, and you really have to consider this. And I think we should.
Now, 7 of the 9 planetary boundaries have been crossed. Why is the ocean so alarming, this for the first time?
Well, the ocean is important because it keeps the climate system stable. It has for millions of years. And just to put this in perspective, we haven't seen acidity levels like this in the ocean for the last 800,000 years. So that's several times the lifetime of our species, Homo sapiens. So that's concerning because the ocean hasn't experienced these conditions in a very long time. And it's just a big part of our life support system, and we have to make sure it stays functional. It's almost like the circulatory system in our body, right? Same idea. So I think this is why it's alarming. But it makes me hopeful that A, we have the data to prove this. Like if we don't know about our health, we can't do anything about it. And B, we have done this before. 2 of the boundaries have not been crossed yet, and both only because we've taken action to avoid crossing a critical threshold.
And which ones are they?
This is ozone depletion. Montreal Protocol in 1987, right here in Canada, brought down the chemicals that were responsible for killing our ozone layer and that would have essentially fried us out of existence. So it was an existential threat at the time. It's now, again, within safe boundaries, thank God. We did the right thing. Same thing for air pollution. Aerosol loading particularly has been brought down over the last few years due to filters for coal-fired power plants and shipping regulations and the like, cleaner fuels. So we can do it. We can even do it at the planetary level. And that really makes me hopeful. It's totally a choice. It's not an inevitability that our health goes down.
All right. Well, thank you so much for walking us through it. We appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Coming up, Israel's prime minister tells the UN his country must finish the job in Gaza as dozens of delegates walk out in protest. And former FBI Director James Comey is indicted on criminal charges following pressure from U.S. President Donald Trump. Welcome back. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu took to the podium Friday at the United Nations General Assembly, and he unleashed a stream of invective against those countries, which included Canada, that last weekend recognized a Palestinian state. The CBC's Margaret Evans reports.
Benjamin Netanyahu.
Israel's growing isolation on the world stage reflected at the UN General Assembly.
Please, order in hall.
Dozens of delegations walking out ahead of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's speech. It came with defiance.
Ladies and gentlemen, much of the world no longer remembers October 7th. But we remember. Israel remembers October 7th.
He hit out at countries, including Canada, for recognizing a Palestinian state.
Your disgraceful decision will encourage terrorism against Jews and against innocent people everywhere. It will be a mark of shame on all of you. The Assad regime in Syria...
There were also theatrics, Netanyahu ticking off enemies eliminated by Israel on a map. And he delivered a message from the UN stage to Israeli hostages held in Gaza.
The idea of peace between Israelis.
Through loudspeakers, he said, were positioned along the border.
And we will not rest until we bring all of you home.
Families of the hostages, dead and alive, demonstrated outside the UN, many long accusing Netanyahu of blocking a deal to end the war. They're appealing to world leaders. Nadav Rudeyev lost his father on October 7th.
The only thing we're trying to do now is convince everyone else, all the world leaders, that this is what needs to happen now. The war needs to end.
In Washington, Donald Trump told reporters a deal is close.
It's going to be peace. I think we have a deal.
Netanyahu gave no indication of that. And there was little mention of the suffering of Palestinians beyond denying Israel was deliberately targeting civilians. This is the aftermath of an Israeli airstrike in Gaza City. Few here would have heard Netanyahu's speech, which he claimed Israeli intelligence was live streaming to Gazans' mobile phones. I didn't hear anything, says Mohammed Wadi. We didn't get voice notes, and God willing, we won't. She's counting on the international community to end the war. But with the world's leaders gathered in New York and all the pleas for peace, Gaza looks set to bleed a while longer. Margaret Evans, CBC News, London.
U.S. President Donald Trump has not finished going after his political enemies just yet. The Justice Department has now filed charges against James Comey, the former director of the FBI. And as the CBC's Anis Haidari reports, Trump also hinted more indictments are to come.
President Donald Trump has called the charges against James Comey Justice in America, with online posts condemning him repeatedly, and in person implying others could face charges, while reiterating his disdain for Comey, who has vocally criticized the president.
It's not a list, but I think there'll be others. I mean, they're corrupt. These were corrupt, radical left Democrats. But Comey essentially was he's worse than a Democrat. I would say the Democrats are better than Comey. But no, there'll be others. Look, that's my opinion. They weaponized the Justice Department like nobody in history. What they've done is terrible. And so I hope there are others, because you can't let this happen to a country.
The charges against Comey come out of testimony at a Senate committee 5 years ago, where Comey denied telling FBI staffers they could leak information to the media. Trump's Justice Department now saying Comey was lying. The former head of the FBI defended himself on social media.
My heart is broken for the Department of Justice, but I have great confidence in the federal judicial system, and I'm innocent. So let's have a trial and keep the faith.
The charges come just days after a federal prosecutor resigned, replaced by one of Trump's personal lawyers. Also days after Donald Trump posted online with a complaint Comey wasn't charged. The timing is a concern for some.
Where's the obstruction of justice? It's not there. And that's why the career people in my old office, the Eastern District of Virginia, the Rocket Docket, voted no. You can't do this. There is no crime. But President Trump is on a retribution tour.
These charges could intensify concerns Donald Trump's political enemies will face charges from federal justice officials. James Comey, heavily involved in that investigation years ago into Russian influence on the first Trump campaign. Anis Haidari, CBC News, Washington.
Prime Minister Mark Carney is overseas today in the UK on a trade mission. Carney spent the day meeting with the leaders of several of Canada's allies.
Bienvenue ici à le petit coin du Canada. No, but it's a pleasure to have the chance to sit down.
You want to do a shake?
A shake?
Carney sat down with the prime ministers of Australia, Spain, Iceland, and of course the United Kingdom. He traded some playful barbs with Keir Starmer about Canada and England facing each other in the Women's Rugby World Cup final tomorrow. He and Starmer also talked about security in Ukraine and in the Middle East. Tomorrow, Carney is meeting with some key European business leaders looking for investment in Canada. A new study from a top medical journal says cancer cases around the world are expected to balloon in the next 25 years, including here in Canada. Researchers and doctors say healthcare systems need to start preparing now. Jennifer Yoon reports.
Screening more people for cancer and treating more cancer patients. This Montreal doctor is already feeling the strain.
People are living longer, which is good, but that also means they're receiving treatments for longer. And I think for staffing, it's been difficult to maintain technologists in the hospital.
Now a new study out of The Lancet suggests more cancer cases and deaths are coming globally. By 2050, researchers expect 18.6 million cancer deaths annually, an increase of 75% from 2024. New cancer cases are also expected to grow to 30.5 million, an increase of 61%. Researchers say that trend will play out here in Canada too.
The population is increasing and older people are living longer, you're going to have more cases.
And the Canadian Cancer Society says that will mean even more strain on the healthcare system.
It does suggest that a lot of additional investments and increases in funding are very likely needed.
Some doctors already see room for improvement as they brace for more cases.
We need to do better with our efficiency, our scheduling. We need to be a bit better at delivering care at home, getting people out of the hospital.
And we had better start preparing now, some say.
In my field, just to train a radiation oncologist takes more than 10 years, so it's not something that we can change on a dime. So we need to be able to project into the future manpower, equipment, and staffing.
When analyzing the data and accounting for the growing risk of cancer as we age, researchers say Canada is doing better than many other countries in treating cancer. Cancer death rates are declining, even as absolute numbers increase. They're hoping by amping up screening and prevention, we'll continue to see that trend. Jennifer Yoon, CBC News, Toronto.
Canada's gross domestic product grew 0.2% in July, its first increase in 4 months, but StatsCan doubts it represents an immediate trend. Mining and quarrying led the way, up 2.6%. Oil and gas rose 0.9%, and manufacturing 0.7%. On the other side of the ledger, retail trade fell a full percentage point. Early estimates suggest little change for August. When it comes to buying anything, there's that old-fashioned saying, buyer beware. Lately, ads have been showing up on Facebook feeds announcing an independent retail store is having a closing sale. But as Santa Choi reports, you may be in for a surprise when you receive your order.
So there's something that I am embarrassed to admit. I got duped when I bought these clothes online. And I'm not the only one. It's happened to countless others. One day, this ad popped up on my Facebook feed, a store closing sale. I clicked on the Laurel Toronto link and ordered 3 outfits for $200, marked down significantly. A package arrived a few weeks later. Inside, the items made with cheap materials and no labels. The fit and fabric, not what it looked like online. I couldn't find any proof that Laurel Toronto was a real store. Then I found more posts warning people not to buy from that website. And I discovered other ads and websites targeting Facebook users' feeds, often with a sad story announcing the store is closing. Soon after, I connected with a business owner who had also unraveled the seams of what was happening to customers. Julie Skirving owns Logan and Finley, a small independent store in Toronto specializing in sustainable clothing. She knew something wasn't right when she started to get angry calls, over 540 of them.
What I experienced was a lot of people calling, a lot of people stopping by, a lot of people emailing.
It became a headache for Skirving to deal with something that really had nothing to do with her, but she did have sympathy. The Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre says these sites are extremely concerning.
Fraudsters know that we're spending a lot of time on social media.
Anytime where your information didn't go to where you were expecting that it would, always good to give your credit card company a call at that point.
Here's what happened when I contacted Laurel Toronto about a return. They asked for a video explanation of what was wrong, then offered a 10% refund to keep the items, or to return their items to an international warehouse, pay $15 per item, $20 minimum shipping, and any customs fees. And now when you go to the website, you get this.
It's buyer beware. And I think in the world that we're living in, with everything being, in one of these, we have a whole world at our fingertips. But I think it's our responsibility as consumers to maybe just do like a little bit more due diligence.
Sana Choi, CBC News, Ottawa.
Canada's main stock index saw a slight gain Friday as GDP numbers were surprisingly up, while U.S. markets saw larger gains as inflation data supported more potential interest rate cuts ahead. Here's a look at the numbers as we head to commercial break.
This weather update is brought to you by Access Wellness Nova Scotia. Book your appointment today for free, confidential mental wellness support.
All right, we're back with one last look at the weather, but first we've been doing a lot of traveling around the province with your viewer picks. Where to tonight?
Tonight, for the first time this week, heading to the South Shore, I believe. It's hard to remember. The days all kind of
we'll find out in a second.
Blend together. Yeah, whether we have been to the South Shore or not this week is what I'm wondering. But we're back there anyway with Risser's Beach and a beautiful shot here.
Wouldn't you like to be there right now?
Yeah, Joanne. Fantastic picture. Thank you so much for this. Ryan's picks at cbc.ca. Thanks to Joanne and to everybody for contributing pictures this week, even if we didn't get them on the air. There's the front that's moving its way out and high pressure moving in. And so we'll see a bit of a northwest flow. You can see with those arrows directing your attention to those because you can see how they're coming from the northwest, a little on the breezy side for tomorrow, especially in through Cape Breton and the North Shore, where winds will be sustained near 20 with some gusts 30 to 40. For Saturday night, the clouds are going to build in. The high pressure, though, just to our south will kind of fight off that system that is approaching. And so we'll actually see a pretty decent Sunday afternoon. And that front you can see approaching from the north, that is going to be moving in for Sunday evening and into the overnight with a couple of showers along that front, but not expecting a whole lot there, and then back into the high pressure for next week. So it's, not a whole lot to report in terms of the wet weather. There are your temperatures for Saturday. We'll be into the high teens across the Cape Breton region in the northeast, into the low 20s for most of the rest of the mainland. Could see some temperatures up towards 22, 23 degrees in through Liverpool and Queens County. Sunday, looking at temperatures more widespread into the low 20s and a pretty nice day overall. Again, that cloud cover a bit thick in the morning. Monday looking quiet with temperatures back near 20 degrees. And then for Tuesday, still some high teens on tap. And we're looking at Wednesday, Thursday, a bit of a cool down, no question about it. Wednesday is the first day of October. Hard to believe we're here. And the Mother Nature will remind us of the calendar on Wednesday.
September has gone fast.
Yeah.
All right. Well, every year, the Guinness World Record book lists the fastest, strongest, and the best among us. It's also about having a really unique trait or ability.
And sometimes it's about being the tallest donkey. Here's a small taste of what's in store for 2026.
Derek is the tallest donkey in the world at 167 centimetres or 5'5". Bamboo has really long ears, so you would expect him to have really good hearing. But in my opinion, sometimes I think he's deaf, or is it just to us?
Everything I looked at, I was wondering, can I turn that into a car? And then one day I'm standing in line in a gas station, and right next to me is a bowl of fruit, and on top was a banana exactly this shape.
Norbert set the Guinness World Record title by skateboarding 10 meters in 11.32 seconds. Wow. He'll do anything for a treat. He loves the camera, so anytime I'm filming something for his social media channels, he just needs to be right up in there and see what's going on.
Lots in store for next year.
Yeah, really.
That is it for us tonight. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Have a great weekend.